Tonight, a blockbuster of an announcement that can continue to fundamentally change the way we receive news in America by further corporatizing the media landscape. CBS, the granddaddy of all news networks, has just sold officially to Viacom. What does that mean? Well, here now is news with Rick Sanchez correspondent Michele Greenstein. She's been drilling down on this for us, and she's going to fill us in. What you got?
Sure. So CBS and Viacom did strike a merger deal today, reuniting two of the biggest media conglomerates on earth. Let's not forget that both these companies already are the products of a bunch of mergers and acquisitions themselves. But this new combined company will be called Viacom CBS Inc., and it's going to be valued at about $30 billion. Now, let's also not forget that this is not the first time that these companies are merging. Their first merger was completed in the year 2000. At the time, this was the largest U.S. media deal to date. They split in 2006, and today, after a decade apart, and also after years of on and off talks, they're merging again. But the difference is that Viacom is not the buyer this time. In 1999/2000, Viacom was the buyer, but this time the CBS shareholders will actually own a majority of this new entity. Let's take a listen to what Bob Bagish, the president and CEO of Viacom, had to say. He's very excited. He said, "I couldn't be more excited about the opportunities ahead for the combined company and all of our stakeholders, including consumers, the creative community, commercial partners, employees, and of course, our shareholders." Which brings me to my next and very important point, because the goal of a company like Viacom or CBS is, of course, like he just said, to make money for his shareholders, right? And in doing so, another goal you could say is for them to become an appealing choice for advertisers, because that's how they make their money. Right. So it's important to note that this is a company that's in the information business, it's in the entertainment business, or excuse me, it's not in the information business, it's in the entertainment business. So when you're a company this big, you also want to make sure that you have a good relationship with the government. So these are all things to take into consideration when we think about how big this company is going to become, giving us our news.
And I think what you're saying is that, just spinning off of what we just heard him say, what's good for shareholders is not necessarily good for consumers. In this case, news consumers, which is considered more than just toothpaste makers. This is the fabric of democracy that we're talking about.
And I think just to go off your point, a lot of the time it's not what you cover, but it's what you don't cover. So there's some information out there that might be very important for the news consumers. Let's not, relegate us to consumers. They're U.S. citizens, you could say, but maybe not so good for the shareholders, maybe not so good for the corporate advertisers. That's exactly right. I want to take you to the Viacom board of directors, though. These are the people at the top making these kinds of decisions. Currently, we have sitting on the board of directors at Viacom a former member of the State Department under Mr. Obama, a current board member of the Bank of America, other banks including Morgan Stanley and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So this kind of speaks to the larger issue that doesn't just exist at places like CBS and Viacom of Wall Street's influence on the press. And it brings us to the question, do we have a free press?
Right. Well, I'll answer that for you. We don't. And we did once in this country.
Sure.
There was a time in this country, and I know I'm old enough to be able to share this story with you, so let me get in my rocking chair here, youngster. There was a time in America where if a salesperson walked into the newsroom, somebody would kick his ass. Literally kick his ass. Tell him, get out of here, you've got no place in the newsroom. Because there was a separation between those two. Today, as you just described, not only is there not a separation between the guy who works in sales and the guy who works in news, today these giant corporations are essentially owning these news companies. And
it's very common. In fact, it's really common for people among us to say something like about 90% of the major media companies are now owned by just 6 corporations, right? So today we're actually moving forward towards more consolidation. Now that number is turning from 6 to 5, right? We've got AT&T owning CNN, Comcast owning NBC. These are all news networks. Disney owning ABC.
Because I'm glad you made that point, but it's not just the fact that this company owns that company. Because everybody's got to own somebody.
This is just the latest step.
It's the people who are on the board of those companies and the influence they can now have on the smaller company they acquired.
And to be honest with you, we have Mr. Bill Clinton to thank for this kind of merger and acquisition landscape to take place. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 is basically what allowed for this unprecedented concentration of media and allowed 90% of U.S. media to be concentrated in just 6, now 5 corporations. And these are companies, again, that are in the entertainment business. There may be in other businesses, or perhaps they're just in the business.
And they own a lot. And by the way, you're mentioning CBS in this conversation. Viacom owns a crapload of networks.
That's right. They actually have 537 subsidiaries, according to their latest SEC filing from 2018.
It used to be you couldn't do that. It was illegal. illegal. If you owned a TV station, you couldn't own the radio station. If you own one TV station, you couldn't own a second TV station.
Right.
Today, they're allowed to own as many as they want.
And this is just the situation with monopoly capitalism, right? This is the trajectory we're on. And I'm glad you brought up CBS, because Don Hewitt, who was the executive producer of CBS's 60 Minutes, at the time when the Telecommunications Act was signed, he actually said, he joked to the New York Times, he said, I'm convinced that before I die, one person will own everything.
And Don Hewitt, by the way, was one of the greatest journalists and one of the coolest guys I've ever met.
Wow.
He's a great man. So there's another old-timer story for you. Good job, Michele. Good
Thank
reporting. So you haven't heard that we're the ones covering the stories that you won't see covered anywhere else? In Venezuela, Kazakhstan. Let's go to Hong Kong. And the media reaction to that has been crickets. How about the way we cover those stories? What the hell does that mean? Huawei, Huawei, Huawei. That's the key word in this case, uprising. Keep? Can you believe that? Watching. This is the right thing for members of the media to do, to actually pick sides. Look, if you like what you see, subscribe.